Barbara's great pleasure to introduce a Rutgers alum, Milo Cairo. He's an attorney internationally and domestically here in New York and New Jersey, where he has his own practice. He's also the co-founder of EXP Adventures, and if anyone can balance life and law, it's certainly Milo. And I'm sure you'll enjoy hearing all about how he did it and how you can apply it in your future careers. Thank you.
Thanks very much, guys. Now, I guess, like Jeff said, my name is Milo, and 2 years ago I graduated Rutgers Law School. Now, I've always been interested in bringing communities together. Specifically, I always reached out proactively to alumni in order to kind of gain some insight into how they survived law school, because I know that was very difficult for me. And for me, at least, I would have found it very helpful to have somebody come and give this sort of advice in law school. I know that you guys don't have the time to get out and actually seek this stuff because you're completely overwhelmed with the work over here. So that's the reason that I'm coming over here and I'm kind of making myself available. And I do encourage each one of you to reach out to me if you guys have any questions about how to handle this stuff, or any non-law related questions as well. Now, since I graduated law school 2 years ago, I've kept very busy. I traveled abroad several times. I've actually produced concerts on both coasts, including New York and Philadelphia. And in the meantime, legally, I've also passed both the New Jersey bar and the New York bar, and I now have clients in both those states, as well as working in Manhattan. Alongside that, I also decided to pursue my dream, which is why I'm here, because of the volume of things that I want to do, and that is EXP Adventures, which is a company with which I take clients abroad for 7 days at a time, so we specialize in week-long trips. And in doing so, we created a website where I now have become a journalist, a graphic designer, a web designer, and an editor, because we've become an online magazine as well. Anyways, Thomas Jefferson is credited with saying that I have not failed, I have found 10,000 ways that don't work. And I personally subscribe to that philosophy, because even though I can come up here and tell you that I have all these things that I've done, I can genuinely also say to you that I have had some spectacular failures. And so that's kind of where I'm coming from, because each one of those has taught me a very valuable lesson in how to manage my life and what works and what doesn't. So sometimes I'm a little bit more brave when it comes to stepping outside of the box. Another important attribute of becoming successful, and I encourage you to do this, is to accept criticism. And I know that many of you, like the big thing in law school when I was here was complaining about professors and complaining about, oh, they did this, he thinks that I'm bad, but I'm not really, I didn't really do this. And I encourage you to, at least for a moment, to adopt the philosophy where you literally just accept that the professor is 100% right, and just say to yourself, okay, let me at least look at it from that perspective. And the reason for that is because when you look at something from two perspectives, even if it's like a 3% more efficient way to look at it, it does increase that marginally. So that's one of the things that I wanted to say before I continue. But I'll start the meat of the lecture now. Basically, 2 years ago, when I sat in the chairs that you guys were in, I felt like I had absolutely no free time. And the reason for that was not because I didn't have free time. It was because I just had too much work to handle. Like, I couldn't take on the volume of work that we had. There was so much reading and everything that we had to do. No matter what time of the year it was, we always had assignments due, whether that was journal, whether it was pro bono, whether it was any type of thing that you get into, because year-round you're involved as a law student. And when I finally pushed through some reading and some writing in the evening, I was mentally exhausted, and I needed a break, and that's where most of the stress came from. And I'm sure you're all familiar with this situation where you're just exhausted and you've done some reading or some writing and you kind of want to take some time apart, but then you get this claustrophobic feeling of guilt. And the reason you get that is because you have more to do, and you're already thinking of what you're doing. So essentially, you're not giving yourself a break. You're forcing yourself to wait. And you're saying to yourself, I'm going to start in 5 minutes, or I'm going to start in 10 minutes. And that becomes a problem because you never actually stop. Conversely, when you do actually give yourself some time off on the weekends, You participate in intensely pleasurable activities, going out with your friends and staying out late and just like pushing it, And so when you do that, you become overwhelmed, and this is where there's a pattern that emerges here. You never actually give yourself a break. You're always on. Your mind is in overdrive the entire time you're doing this. And so the reason I'm here is because I was doing this when I was in law school, and I'm not here to tell you to stop doing what you're doing and stop going out, and I'm not here to tell you to start working harder, because it's impossible. You guys are law students, so you're at capacity. And I'm not here to give you a different schedule of how to put your breaks together, because that's just a temporary solution. It's kind of like a diet, and diets don't really work. What I wanted to come in here and say is basically let you know that what I always looked for is creative solutions, thinking outside of the box, and basically a lifestyle change, a way to kind of alter your thinking, to actually give yourself a little bit of room to breathe. And so after law school, when I engaged in this multitude of activities, and then in addition a stress of trying to find a job in the worst economy in the history of law, there's elements that I picked up and certain factors that I wanted to share with you today. And I actually have those for you on the handout. So if you guys have that, just make sure to take a look. And appropriately so, the handout starts with prioritizing. And prioritizing, what I wrote here is the conscious ability to discern between things that ultimately bring you closer to or are simply a distraction away from your goals. And what I mean by that is essentially you are, no matter what you are doing, whatever mental capacity you're in, you need to be able to categorize everything that you're doing into either an activity that brings you ultimately closer to your goal, or something that is not doing that. And when you set your own goals up, you're doing yourself a disservice when you're not bringing yourself closer to those goals. So I'm not telling you to, like I said, to stop going out, but I'm telling you to assess the situation and find out whether whatever it is that you're going to do is actually going to bring you closer or not to your goal. The second one is something that I had significant trouble with. It's accepting the value of not participating. And what that means is, you guys are in law school right now, so you guys kind of like are in a cliquey environment. Everybody goes out at the same time. Finals are over. Everybody goes drinking at the same time. Whatever it is that you do, when you accept the value of participating, what you do is basically you evaluate whether an activity is actually going to bring you pleasure, or if it's just something that you're going to be doing because everybody else is doing it. So it's kind of the mentality where sometimes it's okay to not participate. And this is, like I said, this is a personal challenge that I had to take on, because I thought that if I didn't go out with my friends, suddenly the world was going to end. They're all going to stop, caring about me. I'm going to become alienated, and then when I come back, I'm going to have no idea what's happening. But that's not true. The fact is, sometimes you just need a break. And not going out, just try it. Try it at least once and see how you feel afterwards. The next thing is accepting the value of time off, and this is particularly important. And what I wrote here is consciously accepting that time off does not involve focusing on life stressors and developing the ability to disassociate from those stressors during breaks. And this goes back to what I said at the beginning. When you take a break, you literally have to train yourself to just shed this guilt that you have. Because you are taking a break because you just did something mentally exhausting. So that means that you should say to yourself, I'm not going to think about that assignment at all. I'll even set an alarm on my phone, put it down, and in the meantime do whatever else I want to do that helps me relax. And that's something that you guys don't often hear in law school, that you can actually relax during these times. And this brings me to the next point, which is procrastination is necessary. So a lot of times procrastination has a very negative connotative meaning associated with it. And that's because when you're procrastinating, you're not doing work and it's bad. But the fact is, your brain is operating at this high capacity the entire time. And what you should do is sometimes just let it go into cruise control. Let it coast. If you're addicted to Farmville or Word Scramble or whatever, or looking on Facebook, watching Teen Idol, whatever it is, just do it. I mean, your brain should turn off for a while. Those things are, completely mindless activities because you're not actually actively thinking. You're just kind of staring off into space. And when I say procrastinating is necessary, it's very important to understand that when you put yourself in that situation where you're kind of just like letting yourself cruise for a little bit, it's healthy to do that. But on the other side, you also have to identify the appropriate time to re-engage with the activity that you were doing. So what I'm essentially trying to do is I'm trying to remove that cloud of guilt away from you and letting you have a little bit more perspective on the fact that you can't be operating at full capacity all the time, and procrastinating is a way for your brain to kind of like disengage for a little bit, and then understanding that when you take time off, it's actually time off. And in terms of pursuing your interests and actually getting closer to your goals, the next item I have is identifying excuses. And what I mean by identifying excuses is when you set the goals up for yourself, what you should do is, if it's your own goal, it's not somebody else's goal. Like if it's a paper that a professor gives you, and they want you to write it, and you're like, well, yeah, I'm tired, so I'm going to go to sleep. That's sometimes fine because you end up doing that. But if the goal is to graduate law school, and you're saying to yourself, I'm definitely going to graduate law school, you ask yourself, if my goal is the ultimate objective here, would I be accepting that excuse for myself? So what I mean is, if you employed yourself to do your job, and if you weren't actually yourself, would you accept that excuse from the person that is now yourself who's doing that job? It's a weird way to look at it, but it's kind of that puts you in a little bit more of an objective space rather than saying, today I'm tired and today I'm just not going to do anything. The next one is building beneficial relationships, and that's actually critical. Ever since I left law school, actually I maintained relationships that I had from college and even from high school, where me and my buddies would get together and we would just do some ridiculous, mindless things. And the more I did this, the more I kind of thought to myself, man, I'm like hungover and tired after doing all these activities, and it's not a good idea. And instead of seeking out better relationships, what I did is I kind of continued these other ones, and also found hanging out with their friends was fun. But I stopped doing that at one point, and I started kind of adhering to this principle here, which basically says surround yourself with the people that you want to be like. Surround yourself with people that inspire you. And you can start doing that right now. I'm not telling you to cut yourself off from your friends that are not helping you out, because those are full, vibrant relationships, and you receive a certain amount of support from those people. What I'm saying is, if you begin now to consciously form relationships that do benefit you, ultimately those relationships are just going to inflate and take up enough of your time, where they're either going to edge out all these other relationships that are not keeping up. And you're also going to encourage your friends to participate in more efficient and productive activities as well. And so building beneficial relationships from this moment forward is really going to help you out when you get out. And one of the relationships that I've had is actually with Professor Clark, who's sitting right here. Learning how to become friends with professors was weird, because I didn't think that you could be friends with your teachers, and now I call him whenever I'm down here and try to catch him up on my life. Another very important factor in kind of becoming successful is identifying benefits. So even in those failures that you have, and I mentioned this before, the Thomas Jefferson quote, where he said 10,000 ways that you failed. From everything that you do, there is a benefit in there, no matter how small. After a battle, there's or after a war, there's bodies strewn all around, but there's still equipment laying around. You could recover that or something like that. I mean, it's a very drastic example. But what I'm saying is, no matter what you do, there's always a way for you to gain a benefit off of it. It's not just a lesson. There's always a way for you to leverage that failure into a new situation. And all you have to do is trust yourself to be creative enough and resourceful enough in order to identify that benefit. And the last and most important point is you are responsible. And the reason I left this for last, even though it ties into the first point, is you should be the person that sets your goals. Now, a lot of people come into law school and they think to themselves, yeah, my parents are both lawyers, they told me to go to law school, my friends and teachers in high school told me to do this because I'm a good analytical thinker, but is that really what you want? I mean, I'm a prime example of a person that, yes, I do participate in the law, and I have identified a way to engage in it in a successful way. But part of the reason for that was because I understood that I've always traveled ever since I was a kid. And now I own an adventure travel company because I have just gone to so many countries. I studied abroad 5 times. And at one point I said to myself, you know what, forget everybody else. Like, I'm not trying to please other people. I'm trying to pursue my interests. So whatever your interests are, if you want to play guitar, go to Philadelphia. There's tons of places you can go, like just walk into a bar and be like, hey, can I play tonight? You could do that. And if you pursue these interests, suddenly you gain a clarity and you say, I'm going to be able to reach this, but I also have, collateral responsibilities, and those are to graduate from law school. But now that you have this idea that you're responsible for your goals and nobody else is involved, you are the only person that you answer to. So suddenly you don't give yourself excuses anymore. And then you are able to prioritize everything that you do. You want to be a professional musician? That's great. You're going to be a professional musician that's also an attorney. Get this done first. Keep practicing your guitar, and when you get out of law school, you'll be able to do both. So those are the points that I really wanted to emphasize, and you guys are very welcome to ask me about them. These are really when I say that these are kind of cutthroat, is because when you start applying these, you realize that there's really no room for anything else. When you begin building beneficial relationships, you suddenly realize that you don't have time to go out with your friends on a Thursday night because you want to do a teleconference with somebody because you want to gain an internship in California, and they're 3 hours behind, so you're going to have the interview at 11 p.m. or 10 p.m. You can't do that from the bar. Now, just a word about our sponsors. The reason I actually approached Barbary. And the reason I approached Barbary is because there was a fundamental impact that I had from studying for the bar exam, thanks to Barbary. There's no way that I could express to you the intensity and the volume of material that you are required to become experts at in order to pass the bar exam. And Barbary, for 40 years, has been forming a strategy in order to attack that. It's a very cutthroat, straightforward, linear strategy. Basically, they give you a schedule, and every single day you either accomplish those things or you don't. And that's how it goes. Because by the end, you literally have no time to go back and to work on those things. And that actually teaches you that you're always moving forward. And if something goes wrong, it doesn't matter because it's already past the time to be able to do that. And I took the bar, 2 times. I took New Jersey and New York, and I learned from that. So another thing is, Barbary. I know that just like every single other company that comes to this school and every other project that comes in here, you're just overwhelmed with the material. So just like a child that's refusing cough medicine, if something is forced upon you, you tend to reject it. So, but I do want to say that without Barbary, I would absolutely not have passed the bar. I can't imagine how I could have brought myself to become so organized in order to address all the material. Now, actually, another cool benefit of Barbary that I did want to mention that they don't probably advertise is you can call them for advice. And what that means is usually, like by the end of the semester, sometimes I wouldn't have read the first couple of chapters because I would have been spaced out at that time, and I would have had some simple questions that are embarrassing. So even asking your fellow students, it would be embarrassing to ask those. But you can actually call into Barbary if you're registered, and they have attorneys on standby that are able to explain these questions for you. And then just a quick word about my adventure company. One thing that I wanted to tell you guys is I encourage you to go and study abroad. I was just speaking with Professor Williams before I started the lecture, and tomorrow I saw on the schedule there is a meeting for study abroad, I think for South Africa. I took the opportunity to study abroad in South Africa and as well as in London, and I actually found employment with one of Professor Clark's friends while I was out there. And the reason for that is because when you study abroad in a legal sense, a lot of people don't think about this, but you get to put on your resume that you operated legally in a foreign environment. And that brings a certain amount of prestige when you get out of law school because of the diversity that you work with. There's not been a time that I have not been challenged when I have gone abroad. every single time there's been something that has been just fundamentally culturally different that has forced me to kind of understand with a broader perspective how to approach problems. And then coming back over here, when you are then answering your exams or when you're entering employment, you actually have this perspective that you bring in. You are able to ask questions that other attorneys are not able to ask. Another huge benefit of that is basically it's a vacation. You know, you get to go explore a different country. They take you out. We went shark cage diving. We went to a winery. We did all these other things. And I understand that you don't have time for a week-long vacation when you guys are in law school. But considering that these international options are available, I think is a very important way to set yourself up for success. Because when you get out of law school, you will have then the entire world that you can draw on in order to have better jobs, rather than be constricted to everything that you did in law school. And I can tell you right now that I still communicate with those people that I have met abroad and with those professors that took me along as well. Anyways, I want to thank you guys for coming and having the pizza. And I do want to turn the podium over to Shawn. He's a friend. He was actually my boss at one point, and he has twins right now. So if there's anybody that can explain to you balancing law and life, I actually think that he is much more equipped to do so than I am. So I'll turn this over to you, Shawn. Thank you very much. And thanks very much, guys.